Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 2, verse 21. There was a man from Ramathaim Zophim, from the hill country of Ephraim, whose name was Elkanah. He was the son of Jeraham, the son of Elihu, the son of Tohu, the son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. He had 2 wives. The name of the first was Hannah, and the name of the second was Peninnah. Now Peninnah had children, but Hannah was childless. Year after year, this man would go up from his city to worship and to sacrifice to the Lord of hosts at Shiloh. It was there that the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, served as the Lord's priests. Whenever the day came for Elkanah to sacrifice, he used to give meat portions to his wife Peninnah and to all her sons and daughters, but he would give a double portion to Hannah, because he especially loved her. Now the Lord had not enabled her to have children. Her rival wife used to upset her and make her worry, for the Lord had not enabled her to have children. Peninnah would behave this way year after year. Whenever Hannah went up to the Lord's house, Peninnah would upset her so that she would weep and refuse to eat. Finally, her husband Elkanah said to her, "Hannah, why do you weep and not eat? Why are you so sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons?" On one occasion in Shiloh, after they had finished eating and drinking, Hannah got up. Now at the time Eli the priest was sitting in his chair by the doorpost of the Lord's temple. She was very upset as she prayed to the Lord, and she was weeping uncontrollably. She made a vow, saying, "O Lord of hosts, if you will look with compassion on the suffering of your female servant, remembering me and not forgetting your servant, and give a male child to your servant, then I will dedicate him to the Lord all the days of his life. His hair will never be cut." As she continued praying to the Lord, Eli was watching her mouth. Now Hannah was speaking from her heart, although her lips were moving. Her voice was inaudible. Eli, therefore, thought she was drunk. So he said to her, "How often do you intend to get drunk? Put away your wine." But Hannah replied, "That's not the way it is, my lord. I am under a great deal of stress. I have drunk neither wine nor beer. Rather, I have poured out my soul to the Lord. Don't consider your servant a wicked woman, for until now I have spoken from my deep pain and anguish." Eli replied, "Go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant the request that you asked of him." She said, "May I, your servant, find favor in your sight." So the woman went her way, and got something to eat. Her face no longer looked sad. They got up early the next morning, and after worshiping the Lord, they returned to their home at Ramah. Elkanah had marital relations with his wife Hannah, and the Lord remembered her. After some time, Hannah became pregnant, and gave birth to a son. She named him Samuel, thinking, "I asked the Lord for him." This man Elkanah went up with all his family to make the yearly sacrifice to the Lord and to keep his vow. But Hannah did not go up with them. Instead, she told her husband, "Once the boy is weaned, I will bring him and appear before the Lord, and he will remain there from then on." So her husband Elkanah said to her, "Do what you think best. Stay until you have weaned him. May the Lord fulfill his promise." So the woman stayed and nursed her son until she had weaned him. Once she had weaned him, she took him up with her, along with 3 bowls, an ephah of flour, and a container of wine. She brought him to the Lord's house at Shiloh, even though he was young. Once the bull had been slaughtered, they brought the boy to Eli. She said, "Just as surely as you are alive, my lord, I am the woman who previously stood here with you in order to pray to the Lord. I prayed for this boy, and the Lord has given me the request that I asked of him. Now I dedicate him to the Lord. From this time on, he is dedicated to the Lord." Then they worshipped the Lord there. Hannah prayed, "My heart rejoices in the Lord. My horn is exalted high because of the Lord. I loudly denounce my enemies, for I am happy that you delivered me. No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one other than you. There is no rock like our God. Don't keep speaking so arrogantly, letting proud talk come out of your mouth. For the Lord is a God who knows. He evaluates what people do. The bows of warriors are shattered, but those who stumble find their strength reinforced. Those who are well fed hire themselves out to earn food, but the hungry no longer lack. Even the barren woman gives birth to 7, but the one with many children withers away. The Lord both kills and gives life. He brings down to the grave and raises up. The Lord impoverishes and makes wealthy. He humbles and he exalts. He lifts the weak from the dust. He raises the poor from the ash heap, to seat them with princes, and to bestow on them an honored position. The foundations of the earth belong to the Lord, and he has placed the world on them. He watches over his holy ones, but the wicked are made speechless in the darkness, for it is not by one's own strength that one prevails. The Lord shatters his adversaries. He thunders against them from the heavens. The Lord executes judgment to the ends of the earth. He will strengthen his king and exalt the power of his anointed one. Then Elkanah went back home to Ramah, but the boy was serving the Lord under the supervision of Eli the priest. The sons of Eli were wicked men. They did not recognize the Lord's authority. Now the priests would always treat the people in the following way. Whenever anyone was making a sacrifice, while the meat was boiling, the priest's attendant would come with a 3-pronged fork in his hand. He would jab it into the basin, kettle, cauldron, or pot, and everything that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they used to do to all the Israelites when they came there to Shiloh. Even before they burned the fat, the priest's attendant would come and say to the person who was making the sacrifice, "Hand over some meat for the priest to roast. He won't take boiled meat from you, but only raw." If the individual said to him, "First let the fat be burned away, and then take for yourself whatever you wish," he would say, "No, hand it over right now. If you don't, I will take it forcibly." The sin of these young men was very great in the Lord's sight, for they treated the Lord's offering with contempt. Now Samuel was ministering before the Lord. The boy was dressed in a linen ephod. His mother used to make him a small robe and bring it up to him at regular intervals when she would go up with her husband to make the annual sacrifice. Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife, saying, "May the Lord raise up for you descendants from this woman to replace the one that she dedicated to the Lord." Then they would go to their home. So the Lord graciously attended to Hannah, and she was able to conceive and gave birth to 3 sons and 2 daughters. The boy Samuel grew up at the Lord's sanctuary. Yeah. It's interesting that you have this taking place in the period of the judges, Samuel being the last of Israel's judges before there's a king there. But you see some dedication to God in the middle of the godless time of the judges, with Hannah here dedicating Samuel from her youth, reaching out to God, and God providing for her, despite the polygamous nonsense her husband Elkanah engaged in. But the priests there seem to be in a bad state, because Eli can't tell sorrow of heart from drunkenness, and even when he does, he doesn't make any inquiry as to what Hannah was praying over, and just says, "Oh, may God grant your request," whatever it was. Hope it was good. But Samuel is born and brought to the temple here, despite the reputation that Eli's sons had gathered, where essentially, rather than the sacrifices being boiled and the fat being burned away, they would demand raw meat, essentially, from the temple goers. And not only that, but later on it talks about how Hophni and Phinehas, the 2 sons of Eli, had this reputation of licentiousness within the temple courts, particularly directed towards the women in the temple. So, Yeah, not good. But Hannah, experiencing the mercy of the Lord here and his grace, gets a son, and she sings this song of thanksgiving to the Lord. And her song is filled with reversals here. Like the bows of the warrior are shattered. Those who stumble find their strength reinforced. Those who are well fed hire themselves out to earn food. They're now hungry, but the hungry no longer lack. The Lord impoverishes and makes wealthy. He lifts the weak from the dust. He raises the poor from the ash heap. And at the same time, he impoverishes. So one who is wealthy becomes poor. So, very interesting there. It would seem to me that she had in mind a lot of the rivalry with her rival wife there, of Peninnah lording it over her that she had no children. And in a reversal of that, she gets children, essentially. Okay, what does Guzik say here? 1st and 2nd Samuel form one book in the ancient Hebrew manuscripts. They were not divided into two books until the Old Testament was translated into Greek. We don't know who wrote the books. Certainly Samuel was a major contributor, but much of the book takes place after his death in 1 Samuel 25. They are called the books of 1st and 2nd Samuel, not because Samuel wrote all of them, but because they describe his great ministry in Israel and the legacy of it. Yeah, I can't help but think, if this is what God does with a willing heart, in the case of Samuel, and just how squandered the Spirit was with individuals like Samson, for instance. A certain man. At this strategic time and place, God began his plan, as he almost always does, with a person he will use. God can do his work by himself, or by angels, or by any number of other means, but his normal method is to find a certain man and work through him. Elkanah, he was a descendant of Zuph, and his family line showed he was a Levite. He is called an Ephraimite here because his family lived in a Levitical city in the boundaries of Ephraim, not because he was of the tribe of Ephraim. Yeah, a reminder that the Levites were scattered throughout Israel. Elkanah had 2 wives. Polygamy was a fact of life in the ancient world. However, the Bible never puts polygamy in a favorable light. Strife and conflict always characterize polygamous families in the Bible. There was an intense competitive relationship between the 2 wives, Peninnah, who had children, and Hannah, who had no children. Polygamy was ever always a sin, though in the patriarchs and ancient saints, a sin of ignorance. It was not so from the beginning. From Trapp. This man went up from his city. According to the law of Moses, Israelites could not worship God through sacrifice at any time and in any way they pleased. They were to bring sacrifices to the tabernacle and the priests, which at this time were at Shiloh. Also the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. These priests are mentioned by name because they were known as notoriously wicked priests. Their mention here shows how godly Elkanah was. Even though the priests were wicked, he still offered sacrifices to the Lord, knowing that the wickedness of the priest did not make his own service to the Lord invalid. He would give portions. As Elkanah brought his family each year to the tabernacle for sacrifice, he ate a ceremonial meal at the tabernacle with his family, giving portions to his wives and their children. He showed his favor and love to Hannah by giving her a double portion. But she wept and did not eat. Because of the conflict between the 2 wives, Hannah could not enjoy this display of love and favor from Elkanah. It is possible for problems at home to make your time at the house of God miserable. Hannah is at the house of the Lord with a blessed double portion in front of her, and she can't enjoy it. The Lord had closed her womb. Beyond Hannah's painful trial, there was a purpose of God. God used the trial of a closed womb to accomplish something great in her life and to further the whole plan of salvation. Even though things were hard, God was still in charge. It seemed strange that Peninnah, who seemed of a bad character, was blessed with children, and Hannah, who seems of a good character, was cursed with barrenness. Often we don't understand God's ways until he completes his plan. Hannah, why do you weep? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? In Elkanah's response to Hannah's sorrow, we see that he really did love her, yet, like many men, he was insensitive. He did not recognize that she had needs he could not fulfill, such as the desire to be a mother. Prayed to the Lord. Hannah was in bitterness of soul and great anguish, yet she did the right thing. Hannah took those bitter and anguished feelings to God, honestly in prayer. O Lord of hosts, Hannah began her prayer by calling on the Lord of hosts. The title is used some 260 times in the Old Testament, and has the idea, Lord of the mighty armies. Hannah felt attacked by her rival, so she called on the Lord of mighty armies to be her protector. She made a vow. Hannah promised her son to the work of the Lord, vowing he would be a Nazirite from birth. According to Numbers 6, the vow of a Nazirite included the following: abstinence from any product from a grapevine, signifying distance from all fleshly pleasures, taking no part in any mourning for the dead, nor to come near a dead body, because the dead showed the corruption and the fruit of sin. Also, this showed that the Nazirite had greater concerns than the ordinary joys and sorrows of life. Never cutting the hair, because it was a public, visible sign to others of the vow. Typically, the vow of a Nazirite was taken for a set and rather short period of time. Samuel and Samson were unique because they were Nazirites from birth. I wonder if Hannah had heard the story of Samson previously and had considered what Samson's parents had done as a means to become a mother. I don't know. I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. The child was already dedicated as a Levite because God regarded the tribe of Levi as his own special possession. But the time of a Levite's special dedication to the Lord only lasted from the age of 30 to 50. Hannah took something that already belonged to the Lord and gave it again to him in a greater way, for the whole life, and in the dedication of a Nazirite, which was a greater consecration than a Levite. Even so, we may be dedicated unto the Lord, but it is possible to give God a greater dedication. It would be easy for Hannah to say, I don't need to dedicate my child to the Lord, because he is already dedicated. But there was a deeper dedication for the Lord to draw out of Hannah. As she continued to pray, this is literally, as she multiplied to pray. We only have recorded a bare summary of Hannah's prayer. Now Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. It is often good to pray aloud, because it can help us to better focus our thoughts. Yet this passage showed that prevailing prayer doesn't need to be vocal. Effective prayer can be silent and in the heart. How long will you be drunk? Eli misunderstood Hannah, but the fact that he suspected that she was drunk shows that it may not have been unusual for people to become drunk at the fellowship meals with the Lord at the tabernacle. The fact that Eli suspected Hannah of drunkenness doesn't speak well for what went on around the tabernacle. The fact that Eli supposed her to be drunken and the other of the conduct of Eli's sons already mentioned proves that religion was at this time at a very low ebb in Shiloh. For it seems drunken women did come to the place, and lewd women were to be found there. From Clark. No, my lord, Hannah did not accept Eli's accusation, but she did not respond in a haughty or arrogant tone. She would explain herself, but she did it remembering that he was her high priest. I have poured out my soul before the Lord. This is exactly what Hannah needed to do. Instead of keeping the bitterness of soul and the anguish in her heart, she poured it out of her soul before the Lord. The God of Israel grant your petition. Eli may have spoken this only as a kind wish, but it was in fact a word from the Lord. Her face was no longer sad. The change in Hannah's countenance shows that she received the promise with faith, something necessary if we will inherit the promises of God. Hannah shows how we can regain the joy of fellowship in the house of the Lord again, by pouring out our heart before the Lord and by receiving his word with faith. Then they arose early in the morning and worshipped. Hannah could genuinely worship the Lord in faith while the promise was still not yet fulfilled. This is a glorious pattern of faith. And the Lord remembered her. To use the term remembered is an anthropomorphism, a way of explaining God's actions in human terms that we can understand. Even if it doesn't perfectly describe God's action, it isn't as if God ever forgot Hannah, but it is proper to say he remembered her. Yeah, and from what I've heard, each time it says that the Lord remembered someone or something, be it Israel or some individual, it's always associated with action. God sees the desperate plight that a person is in and remembers them and intervenes on their behalf. It came to pass in the process of time. It didn't happen right away. Hannah had reason enough to be discouraged, but when the promise of God was spoken, she did not lose faith in the promise, even when it took some time. She is a great example of those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. Until the child is weaned. In that culture, a child was usually not weaned until 2 years of age, or sometimes 3 years. It is reasonable to assume that Hannah was in no hurry to wean Samuel. Only let the Lord establish his word. This was wonderful counsel from Elkanah. He said, "Do everything in obedience to God, so we may see his word established among us." A good word from her husband. She took him up with her. This was hard for Hannah and Elkanah. Their willingness to fulfill the vow, even at great personal cost, is evidence of godliness. With 3 bulls, the fact that 1 Samuel 1:24 mentions 3 bulls brought to Shiloh, but 1 Samuel 1:25 mentions only 1 being sacrificed, with some of the meat available for a fellowship meal, emphasizes that one of the bulls was specifically made as a burnt offering for the cleansing and consecration of little Samuel. I also have lent him to the Lord. This could be translated, and I also made myself to present for the Lord. The idea is not that Hannah owned the child and lent him to the Lord. Instead, the idea is that the child is her prayer, or the fulfillment of her prayer to the Lord. The name Samuel means name of God, but Hannah, as was common among the Hebrews, made a pun on the name by saying that she had asked the Lord for him. Asked in Hebrew sounds like Samuel. So they worshiped the Lord there. Worship is a repeated characteristic of this family. Even in difficult situations, they could worship the Lord. Praising God on the day you give your little son away may not be easy, but it is praise God is pleased with, even as we are told to bring a sacrifice of praise to God. Hannah prayed and said, 1 Samuel 1:28 ended, "So they worshiped the Lord there." This song records the worship Hannah offered on the very day she left her little boy, her only child, at the tabernacle, never for him to live at home again. My heart rejoices in the Lord. Hannah showed a depth of commitment and love for God that may humble us. On that day, she made the biggest sacrifice of her life, and she rejoices in the Lord. Notice, though, that she rejoices in the Lord. She could not rejoice in leaving her son, but she could rejoice in the Lord. In the most desperate situations, when we have nothing else to rejoice in, we can rejoice in the Lord. My horn is exalted in the Lord. The horn is used often as a picture of strength in the Bible. This is because the strength of an ox or a steer could be expressed in its horn. Hannah spoke of strength and power being exalted in the Lord. We have often seen that horn signifies power, might, and dominion. It is thus constantly used in the Bible, and was so used among the heathens. I smile at my enemies. Hannah had a strong sense of vindication over her rival. Elkanah's other wife, named Peninnah, cruelly brought Hannah low, but now Hannah rejoiced because the Lord had lifted her up. There is none holy like the Lord. This shows a classic form of Hebrew poetry, repetitive parallelism. To say the Lord is holy is to say he is completely set apart, that he is unique and not like any other. When she continued in the same verse and said, "For there is none besides you," she said the same thing as "there is none holy like the Lord," only saying it in different words. When she said, "Nor is there any rock like our God," she again says the same thing in different words. In this, Hebrew poetry does not rhyme words by sound as much as it rhymes ideas. The ideas of the 3 lines of 1 Samuel 2:2 all rhyme together, having different words, yet sounding the same. Talk no more so very proudly. Hannah certainly had her rival in mind, but she also saw Peninnah as a representative of all the proud and arrogant people in the world. Hannah wisely told the proud to talk no more, and to let no arrogance come from your mouth. Pride can be expressed in many ways, but usually is expressed by our words. It would be better if proud people just did not talk so much. For the Lord God is the God of knowledge. This, of course, is the best reason to forsake our pride. Next to God, we know nothing. He knows us, and by him actions are weighed. The bows of the mighty men are broken. We should be humble before God, because he knows how to humble the strong. Those who were full are now begging, and she who has many children has become feeble. If we are strong or exalted now, we should keep humble, because the Lord can change our place quickly. Yeah, and it's not as though it's by our own effort that these things have come to pass. God has put in us the abilities to do so. Well, every good thing that we have is ultimately from God. So, lording gifts over another person is the height of foolishness, as if they were earned by our own merit, when they're actually gifts. Those who stumbled are girded with strength. Those who are hungry have ceased to hunger. Even the barren has borne 7. We should be humble before God, because he knows how to exalt the weak. If we are weak or in a low place, now we should wait humbly before God and let him lift us up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. Hannah knew she was barren because the Lord had closed her womb. She knew God first set her low and then brought her high. She could see the hand of the Lord in it all. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's. Hannah was confident in God's ability to humble the strong and exalt the weak, because God is in control. If God were not in control, then perhaps the strong could do what they wanted, and God couldn't stop them. Hannah knew that the foundation of the earth itself, the pillars of the earth, belonged to the Lord. For by strength no man shall prevail. The adversaries of the Lord shall be broken in pieces. God uses his power to set things right. It isn't enough for us to believe God has this power. We must know he will use it for his glory and righteousness. He will give strength to his king and exalt the horn of his anointed. At this time Israel did not have a king and didn't seem to want one. So when Hannah spoke of his king, she looked ahead to the Messiah, who will finally set all wrongs right. He is his anointed. This is the first place in the Bible where Jesus is referred to as the Messiah. She first applied to him the remarkable epithet Messiah in Hebrew, Christ in Greek, and anointed in English, which was adopted by David, Nathan, Ethan, Isaiah, Daniel, and the succeeding prophets of the Old Testament, and by the apostles and inspired writers of the New, from Hales, cited in Clark. Zacharias, the father of John the Baptist, quoted Hannah in Luke 1:69 when he prophetically called Jesus a horn of salvation, quoting from 1 Samuel 2:10. Mary, the mother of Jesus, quoted Hannah's song often. Then Elkanah went. They did it. It was hard to do, to leave this little son behind, but they did it because they promised God they would do it. But the child ministered to the Lord before Eli the priest. Young as he was, Samuel had a ministry to the Lord. Our young people can praise and please God, and it is often a breakthrough in their walk with the Lord when they experience God in worship. The Living Bible translates it well, and the child became the Lord's helper. There are ways that even children can serve God and minister to him. Yeah, and I've seen this even in evangelistic work. Children can do well. The sons of Eli were corrupt. Literally, the ancient Hebrew calls them sons of Belial. Belial was a pagan god, and the phrase sons of Belial refers to worthless and wicked men. This was a significant problem, because the sons of Eli were in line to succeed him as high priest, and they already functioned in the priesthood. But they did not know the Lord. Even though their father Eli knew the Lord, that knowledge was not passed on genetically to his sons. They had to personally know the Lord for themselves. The priest's custom with the people. With many of the sacrifices brought to the tabernacle, a portion was given to God, a portion was given to the priest, and a portion was kept by the one who brought the offering. According to other passages in the Old Testament, the priest received a portion of the breast, and the shoulder. But now, some 400 years after the law of Moses came, the priestly custom changed. They did not take the prescribed portion of the breast and shoulder, but took whatever the fork, the flesh hook, brought up out of the pot. Before they burned the fat, God's portion was always given first, so it was wrong to take the priest's portion before they burned the fat. The fat was thought to be the most luxurious, best part of the animal, so they gave it to God. The idea was that God should always get the best, and God should get his portion first. But in their pride, the sons of Eli took their portion before they burned the fat. Yeah, and God specifically commanded that the fat should be given to God. He will not take boiled meat from you, but raw. Why did the sons of Eli want raw meat? Perhaps it was so that they could prepare it any way they pleased, or more likely it was because raw meat was easier to sell, and they sold the meat and pocketed the money. No, but you must give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force. The greed of Eli's sons was so bad that they did not hesitate to use violence, and the threat of violence to get what they wanted. And this even on the temple grounds. Tabernacle grounds. For men abhorred the offering of the Lord. The greatness of the sin of Eli's sons was clear, because through their greed, violence, and intimidation, they made others not want to come and bring offerings to the Lord. It was bad enough what they themselves did, but the greater sin of Eli's sons was in how they hurt other people. But Samuel, as bad as Eli's sons were, Samuel was different. We can say that is why God raised up Samuel, because of the corruption of Eli's sons. God knew how bad Eli's sons were, so he guided the whole series of events that resulted in Samuel's service at the tabernacle. If Eli's sons were not worthy successors, then God would raise up someone else. Ultimately, corrupt ministers do not stop or even hinder the work of God. It may look like it, but every time there are men like Eli's sons, God raises up someone like Samuel. God's work does not stop when God's ministers become corrupt. Yeah. Wearing a linen ephod, even as a child, Samuel distinguished himself in his service to the Lord. His service was exceptional enough that he received a linen ephod, a priestly garment. What did Samuel do? He did small charges as setting up lights, laying up vestments, learning music, or the like, from trap. Even as a child, though a child, Samuel served the Lord better and in a greater way than the sons of Eli did. What man looks at in the service of God is often not what the Lord looks at. His mother used to make him a little robe. Only someone who was really there would describe such a small detail. Though Hannah gave her little boy to the Lord, she never stopped loving him. And the Lord visited Hannah. He certainly did. 3 more sons and 2 daughters. God will never be a debtor to anyone. Hannah could never say to the Lord, I gave you my son, but what did you give to me? Because God gave her much more in return. Cool. Well, anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.